There's a secret to reading and understanding law and statutes like a lawyer, and I'm going to show you how it works and how to use it. I'm Brian. I make videos about law and civics, so please comment, share, like, repost, and help me get this video out there so people will see it, because this is your law too, and you deserve to understand it. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I taught some of you how to brief a case using the IRAC method, or as I like to call it, the FIRAC method. Don't tell a lawyer that, their heads will explode. Well, today, we're going to take it up a notch. You ready? I'm going to show you how lawyers, and especially law students, use IRAC to learn and understand, to read and interpret statute. So we're going to do the sort of exercise that a student might do, even if they wouldn't do it in exactly this form, to understand what a particular law means and how it operates in real life. And since this is me, we're going to start with a weird story with poorly drawn stick figures. By the way, thank you, Pal, for the new markers, because they are awesome. This is the story of Gina and Charlie. So Gina and Charlie are driving down the street in Rockford, Illinois one day because Charlie is finally taking Gina out for a nice dinner for their anniversary. Suddenly, Charlie realizes he's in trouble because he doesn't have any money to take Gina out to dinner. But he remembers that Victor lives nearby. Now Victor owes Charlie $1,000 for a really nice watch that he bought off of Charlie. And Charlie thinks, oh, you know what? I'll go over to Victor's, I'll get the $1,000 from him, and then I'll be able to take Gina out to a nice dinner. So Charlie says to Gina, hey, I gotta go stop by Victor's house to pick up $1,000 that he owes me so we can go buy dinner. And Gina says, oh, Charlie, you're gonna buy me $1,000 dinner? You treat me so nice. But now Gina has a problem because Gina didn't get Charlie anything for their anniversary. But Gina has a plan. When they get to Victor's house, Gina is going to snoop around and see what she can find, and if nothing else, she's going to steal that watch back and give it to Victor as an anniversary present. Problem solved. They finish their drive through Rockford, Illinois, and make their way to Victor's house. For any of you who keep asking me why I do it in Rockford, A, I like Illinois statutes, and B, Natasha Leggero used to tell hilarious stories about Rockford, Illinois, and they're just in my head. So, they pull up to Victor's house with the big sign out front, really tacky, that says Victor's Daycare, because Victor runs a daycare out of his house during the day. I mean, no judgment, we all gotta have a side hustle. And they knock on the door, and Victor comes up, lets them in, no problem. Come on in, guys. They're friends. Well, Gina immediately starts her snooping, and Charlie takes Victor aside and says, hey, I need you to give me that $1,000 you owe me for the watch. Well, Victor is incensed because Charlie had told him he had another 2 weeks to pay it back, so he is pretty mad. And he says, you guys get out of my house right now. I thought you were coming in here to say hi because we were friends. You're just here for money. Get out of my house. Well, this is not going to go great because Charlie still needs the money and Gina hasn't found anything to steal yet. So in unison, they both yell, we are not going anywhere. And they don't. Well, Victor thinks about it for a second. He feels like he overreacted and he's like, you know what? Never mind. You don't have to leave, but I'm not giving you $1,000. Well, right then, Charlie gets an idea. He puts his finger inside of his pocket of his hoodie and sticks it out and says, you know what? I got a gun here and I'm going to shoot you right now if you don't get me $2,000 immediately. Well, Victor is really scared because he thinks he's about to get shot and he panics. And so he runs over. Apparently the daycare business has been good to him. So he goes over and opens up the safe, takes out $2,000, gives it to the two of them. Gina hasn't found anything, but she's ready to go. So they take off, they go, they have their nice dinner, they go home and do what you do on your anniversary night. That is the story of Gina and Charlie and Victor. Okay? All right, now let's talk secret code. For those of you who are new here, the code word is IRAC, I-R-A-C, or as I say often, FIRAC. Don't say it in front of a lawyer. Their heads will explode. They've said IRAC a million times. The word FIRAC just makes their head spin around. IRAC stands for Issue, Rule, Application, Conclusion. And that is the order that's always used by attorneys, by judges, by anybody in the legal field to write an opinion, to write anything pretty much related to law. It's just how we process information. So that's what we're going to do right now with the story that we just told. Issue, rule, application, conclusion. And today we're going to look at 3 different crimes. And we're going to use the Illinois statutes because, of course, these crimes took place in Rockford, Illinois. Now, the 3 crimes we're going to look at are trespass, robbery, and burglary. We're going to process all of these using the IRAC system, and then we can compare them and learn what the different crimes are. I usually frame an issue in terms of under, does, when. Under Illinois law, does a person commit trespass when they do all of the things we talked about a few minutes ago? But to be honest, since we're going a little fast here, we're going to make our issues a little bit simpler, okay? Did Gina commit trespass? Did Charlie commit trespass? Did Gina commit robbery? Did Charlie commit robbery? Did Gina commit burglary? Did Charlie commit burglary? You've probably heard of these crimes before, and you may even have an image in your head of what they look like, but I need you to get rid of those images because chances are they are not correct. Every state has their own laws about crime. They are different in every state, which is why so many people like to argue with me in the comments about what the definition of burglary is, for example. But they didn't steal anything. Yeah, in Illinois, they don't require you to steal anything to have committed burglary. Every state is going to have different rules, and while New York, for example, has breaking and entering, Illinois does not. So quit arguing with me about whether or not it's breaking and entering. It's not in Illinois. It doesn't exist. Anyway, so what we got to do is look up this particular statute for this particular state and see how this state defines it. Now, I'm going to have an assignment for you later, but you might as well hear this now. If you Google Illinois robbery statute, Illinois trespass statute, Illinois burglary statute, they'll all come right up. So go ahead and Google those and you can follow along. So the next step is we write in the rule, and each of these rules has 4 parts. In the state of Illinois, you commit trespass if you, 1, knowingly, 2, without legal authority, 3, enter or remain, 4, inside of a building. In Illinois, a person commits robbery when he or she, 1, knowingly, 2, takes property, 3, from the person or presence of another, 4, by use of force or by threatening the imminent use of force. And in Illinois, a person commits burglary when he or she, 1, knowingly, 2, without authority, 3, enters or remains, 4, with intent to commit a felony or theft. So the next step in the IRAC process is the application. Issue, rule, application, conclusion. So now we have to apply our facts to these rules and see what the answers are to our issue questions. Here's how we're going to do it. So what we need to do in the application stage is go through each of these 4 requirements and see whether Gina or Charlie meet the requirement. If they meet all 4 of them, then they've committed the crime, and that's the answer to our issue question. Now, my system is always to use checkboxes. I find that checkboxes work really well in the law. So for now, we're going to do that. Now, a couple of these rules have ors in them, meaning that it could be one thing or another. That means that to satisfy number 4 here, 2 different things are possible. Here's how I like to lay it out. So first we're going to look at Gina and we're going to make a checkbox for each of the 4 requirements, but watch what I do here. Now, if Gina has met 1, 2, 3, and 4, then we'll check this box down here. Conclusion, yes, she committed trespass. But number 3 has an or statement in it. Enter or remain. So I put 2 boxes here. We can check either one of those to check number 3. And I'll do the same for Charlie. Now let's walk through our story and ask the questions. Did Gina knowingly, without authority, enter a building? Well, Victor opened the door for them and welcomed them in. So no, she had authority to enter when she came in. She knowingly entered, but she had authority. So she doesn't meet those requirements. But what about remain? What happened when Victor told her to leave? Remember that both Charlie and Gina yelled in unison that they weren't going anywhere. At that moment, Gina remained knowingly in a building without authority. Remained knowingly without authority in a building. That means Gina has committed trespass. By the same logic, Charlie has also committed trespass because when he was told to leave, he also didn't leave. Now, it was only for a moment, but this is a hypothetical. This is how we learn. Charlie was asked to leave, and he knowingly, without authority, remained inside the building. Charlie also committed trespass. Now let's look at the other two crimes. To commit robbery, you must have knowingly taken property from another person with force or imminent force. Now, imminent force means I didn't actually pull it out of your hand, but I told you that it was about to be pulled out of your hand. Robbery's second requirement says that you must have taken property from someone. Gina never took property from anyone. She was going to, but she didn't do it. So Gina has not committed robbery. Gina's missing that second one. No robbery. Now remember, initially Charlie was coming in to get $1,000, but he changed it to $2,000. So Charlie knowingly took property from Victor, another person. Did he use force? No. But did he use imminent force? Well, he said he had a gun in his pocket. Even though he didn't, there was no reason for Victor to know that he didn't. So he implied that there was imminent force coming if he didn't turn over that $2,000, and Victor turned it over, showing that Victor believed there was a gun there. Imminent force is there. Number 4 is met. Charlie has committed robbery, but Gina has not. Now let's break down burglary, which we did in the last IRAC video and people went crazy, so we'll work with this. Burglary has 2 or statements in it, which makes it even more complicated. So I'm going to write it out as cleanly as I can. In order to commit burglary in Illinois, you must knowingly and without authority enter or remain with intent to commit either a felony or a theft. Okay, so we have 2 or statements here. I got in so many fights with people about intent in the comments. Here's the deal. This isn't a real story. I made this story up. I'm going to tell you who has intent and who doesn't. So don't argue with me about intent. We'll get to intent someday. It's a whole topic on its own. What's important to understand here is when the intent was formed, because that's what it says in the law. So this is really the part we've been building to, because this is going to get really interesting. At some point in our story, did Gina intend to commit a theft? Yes. Did Charlie intend to commit a theft at some point in our story? Yes. But did they intend to commit those thefts at the same time? No. They intended them at very different times. In the end, Gina didn't end up committing a theft. Charlie did. But what matters here is not actual theft, but intent. Theft is not one of the requirements here. As we showed you in the last IRAC video, you can be charged with burglary without actually stealing anything. What matters is that you intended to steal something. So let's look at our story brick by brick. Now, our first or statement is entering or remaining. And there's sort of 2 points here in our story, because at one point they enter the house, and at another point they remain in the house because they're told to leave and they don't. When they enter the house, does Gina already intend to steal something? She does. Does Charlie already intend to steal something? No. But Gina enters the house with authority. So even though she enters with the intent to steal something, she's invited in. So her entry cannot meet the requirements of burglary. And since Charlie did not intend to commit any sort of a crime when he entered the house, his entry cannot meet the requirements of burglary. Now, if anybody's thinking, what if the watch he sold fell off the back of a truck, and by completing this sale, he's actually committing a crime and it's a felony? I like the way you think. I thought of the same thing, but we don't have that information and evidence. We're not going to bring that up right now, but I see you. The point is that when they entered, neither one of them met the requirements. But what about the moment of remaining? Now, if you recall, Victor sent them out of the house, said, you guys have to leave, and they both said, no, we're not leaving. But then a minute later, Victor changed his mind and said, never mind, you can stay. So in that, let's say, minute, when they were remaining without authority, knowingly, did either of them intend to commit a felony or theft? If so, they will have met all of the requirements and they will be guilty of burglary. Let's look at Gina. Gina intended to commit a theft from the moment she walked in the door until basically the moment she walked out. Right at the end, she decided, and walked out the door. But her intent didn't change until well after their authority had been returned. Gina knowingly, without authority, remained with intent to commit theft. Gina is guilty of burglary. What about Charlie? Charlie came up with 2 ideas right after he was given authority to remain in that house. The first was he was going to pretend to have a gun, and the second was to change the number from 1,000 to 2,000. Those 2 things were definitely intent to steal, but they came right after authority to remain was returned. Charlie had the intent for theft, but he did not remain without authority. We don't have the elements. Charlie is not guilty of robbery. Now, here's what I want you to get out of this exercise. First of all, once again, every state has its own criminal statutes, so they're always going to be different. Find out the ones for yours, take a look at them, put them into checkboxes, see what they look like. Second, this is sort of how we as law students learn the difference between these crimes. We get hypothetical stories like this, and we apply them to the different patterns and see which ones apply and learn the differences. So now I have a little something, we'll call it fun for you. I'm not sure if you'll find this fun, but if you do, we're in this together. Okay, I have put some little Easter eggs in this story. You go to Google and Google the Illinois statute for trespass, robbery, and burglary, you're going to find a much longer statute. I only gave you kind of the first basic line of each of these. There's different degrees of these crimes, there's different levels of felony, all kinds of extra stuff. Go through those, take a look, do this process, and see whether anything else in this story sounds like it might be a different crime, higher, lower, anything special. And pop that into the comments. Tell me what you find. And go ahead and analyze the $1,000, the $2,000. Go into all of that. Take a look at it and compare it against the other layers. Because that's what a law student does. That's what a lawyer does. And now you're starting to think like a lawyer. All right. Thanks guys for watching. This was really fun to make. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this was helpful. And if you have any questions, please share them. Again, I want to thank Pal for sending me new markers because mine are running really low and these are way better. And I want to thank the person who sent me the new filter for my car because that's super useful. If anybody else wants to help out, there are ways to help in my link tree. There's an Amazon wish list. There's Buy Me a Coffee. There's my Venmo. I really appreciate it because I'm trying to put these together. But even just watching these, commenting and stuff is really helpful. So thanks for watching and Happy New Year!